Welcome to the Art of Transitions. I'm Gwen Mazza and I'm your host. Our show today is Within a Purple Heart, and our guests are Mr. and Mrs. Farchione, Mr. Daniel Farchione and Miss Mimi Farchione. We'll be talking about World War II and a battle that never existed until most recently a few years ago. Come back and join us. Welcome back to the Art of Transitions. I'm Gwen Mazza, and our guests today are Daniel Farchione and his lovely wife, Mimi. Thank you for coming to be with us. I had an opportunity to meet the two of you through your daughter, Sharon, and have known your daughter for many, many years. And she came into the office one day and started talking to me about a story. And the story that she started to share with me was about your experience in World War II in a battle called the Herkston Forest Battle. And it was also in your experiences in the prison camps. I did not know that you had had that experience, and I did not know that there was such a rich story behind that. And I've asked the two of you to come on board today and be our guests to share your experience, your wisdom, your hope, and your love, which your daughter has actually depicted in a book now that I understand is in print, is getting into print right now as we speak. And the name of the book is Within a Purple Heart, Through the Battle of the Herkston Forest and Prison Camps of Our Second World War. I had a chance to read it and proof it through and was very touched, very moved, and wanted you to have an opportunity to share with folks in the community somewhat a little bit about this story so that they can begin to understand what a wonderful, wonderful set of parents you first and foremost are through Sharon, but wonderful folks you are, and the dedication you both have given us as a country to help us be what is incredibly free, what is incredibly safe, and at a place where no one really understood what you actually surrendered to give us those opportunities. So, welcome.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So as we sat in your sunroom the other day, we had a really great conversation. And what I'd like to do is just offer up a timeline to start and talk about your life experience. You're meeting this lovely woman in the area of Canandaigua, if I'm correct, and where you met. And then you quickly were married in the year 1942,
Right.
in October 17th. So you have many, many years of beautiful marital bliss behind you.
Right.
And you were married the 17th of October, and in 1944, you returned home on a May Day into the family home of the newlyweds. And Mimi, you were 7 months pregnant, correct?
Right.
And on that day, you walked in and found a letter waiting for you, correct?
Correct.
What was that day like for you?
That's so devastating.
A devastating day.
Right.
Your heart just sank?
Right.
Everything stopped?
Right.
And how about for you, Daniel? What were your thoughts running through your mind on that day when you saw that letter?
Well, actually, my mind went blank. And then at the same time, I expected it. No question about it. Because when I got out of high school, I wanted to enlist, but then I decided not to. So I went into defense work. And not too long after that, that's when I got the letter.
How old were you?
How old was I?
Do you remember how old you were when you got that letter?
23.
23. You had been married a short time.
Right.
You had a baby on the way,
Right.
and the letter arrived.
Right.
And there's a lot of pieces that I've gotten to know about you as a family and as a couple as I read the book and spending a short bit of time with you. And one of the things that was very clear to me is this great, great love that you have for your wife, your family,
Right.
and your country.
Right.
what I also experienced is this incredible love that you, Mimi, share in return.
Right.
Something that today would be an incredible role model for so many people who walk the face of this earth. You're an amazing couple.
Thank you.
After the letter came, you headed off to boot camp.
Right.
Where did you do boot camp? Do you remember?
Where
Did you go to boot camp?
Spartanburg, South Carolina.
You were in South Carolina.
Camp Croft.
Camp Croft. You were off to Camp Croft, and you returned home after boot camp to find what?
Well, to find my lovely daughter.
You had a lovely daughter, Mary Jean, correct?
Mary Jean.
Mary Jean was born.
right.
And she was a couple of weeks old, maybe?
No, she was just a month old.
She was just a month old.
Right.
So you returned back to your daughter and your wife and your family and your friends.
Right.
It was very clear as I got a chance to breeze and read through the book that you were very much surrounded by family and friends.
Right.
Great neighbors, a great neighborhood. In fact, in your neighborhood, not only were you headed off to war, but I understand 3 of the folks from your neighborhood had already gone there.
Pardon?
3 gentlemen had already gone before you.
Oh, yes,
3 of
yes,
your
yes.
friends from your class
Right.
had already gone over to,
Right.
to World War II.
That's the group I was going to enlist with.
That was the group, and they had gone ahead of you, and you
Right.
held off for a little bit.
Right.
Okay, okay. So you were off within a week. You got to come home for a week,
For a week. Right.
and then you set off on your journey, and
Right.
you took a train to
Train.
New York. Where did you port
New
out
York.
of? To New York. And the name of the boat you took was
Queen Mary.
the Queen Mary. The Queen Mary. A little bit back from that, though, is one of the things I realized is that no one knew where you were going.
No.
Your wife was saying goodbye to you.
Right.
They were putting you on a train and then
Right.
on a boat.
Right.
And no one knew you were going to this battle, which is the Battle of Hurkston Forest.
Right.
In fact, actually, can you talk a little bit to us today about how come, I mean, I've heard of different battles during World War I, World War II, but I was not familiar with the Hurkston Forest battle until Sharon
were
brought
we.
it to me.
Neither were we.
You were not. You had no idea. You'd never heard of this.
Right.
Okay. And you were commanded to keep it that way.
Right.
As you've gone through the years, have you understood why they had that so quiet for so long?
No, not to be honest with you, no. I didn't know why they were keeping. Well, we actually kept it quiet ourselves.
We, the folks who were there.
You're right.
And the thought was, we need to keep it quiet because it was so painful.
Yeah, well, painful memories, you know. You don't want to, we didn't want to talk about it.
And yet, over the last few years, people have begun to share this story.
Yeah.
Yeah, we figured it's about time.
You landed on the beach. You went into France,
Le Havre.
Le Havre Beach. And then where did you go following that? What was the journey like?
Well, once we landed and we bivouacked, and we in Gervais, France. Part was on the borderline, Gervais, France, and Belgium. And then that for overnight. Then we started on the nice long journey into the forest.
The nice
Now, let me make the. We never trained for forest fighting. We were trained for house-to-house combat
Okay.
and field fighting and so on, but never trained for forest. So it was very unexpected to see what we were into.
So nothing you had trained for, nothing you were prepared for. Mimi's at home with the baby, no idea where you are,
That's right.
where you've landed. No one has any idea.
Right.
While you're going over there, Mimi's home, making you socks.
Yeah.
What else were you doing?
Well, I got 4 the V meals. They call them V meals. They reduced letters to small letters. And 1st of November, 3rd and 4th, and after that I didn't hear anything else from him all winter long.
All winter long. So you received a total of 4
And-
letters?
Oh, it had to be 4 months. And then on March 4th, a postcard came through from him saying he was a prisoner of war. And I guess one of the guards mailed it for him, which was very fortunate. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known.
So you had no idea where he was?
No,
You didn't know if he was still here?
No,
You didn't know if you had lost him?
no,
You just knew he had been sent somewhere that he didn't even know about or had never heard about? You walked for days until you came to the edge of the forest.
Right, right.
You hadn't been trained for the forest. You had been trained for combat door to door.
Right.
So when you approached the forest, what kind of direction were you given from those in command?
Well, we just followed our platoon leader.
You just followed the platoon leader.
Yeah.
Now, as I read some of the book, there were not a lot of upper command there on site. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. So they were giving orders from
Through the radio.
through the radio, and the radio was the means of communication. Period.
That's it.
That's it. So your platoon was there. That was it. All other folks were stationed somewhere else.
Right, right.
I read as I was reading, I got a chance to understand how the forest was actually designed by Hitler.
Right.
And it was not just an ordinary forest.
Man-made.
Man-made forest. Can you describe a little bit of the man-made forest to us so we understand what you were walking into?
We only had strategically planted the trees so they would, when they would fall, they'd fall in a certain way. Mm-hmm. So, and it was close enough that we couldn't get our tanks through. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you couldn't tell where they were hiding and so on. So when we'd hear rifle fires, we'd know where it was coming from. As you know, and that go in the forest, mm-hmm. It can come from different ways. So this was it was a blind fighting more or less. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And snow and mud and so on. So
snow and mud.
Oh yeah.
No dry supplies.
No dry supplies.
Forest
No
that as
kitchen,
it fell.
no kitchen behind us.
No kitchen behind you.
No.
Nothing.
No.
Nobody cooking. Nothing. And when the trees fell, they interlocked.
Somewhat, yes.
They were interlocking to make it even more challenging for you to find where you were at. If it's okay with you, I'd like to read just a little bit out of the book that described what it was like for you to stand amongst this forest.
Okay.
Is that okay? Grab my glasses. As Daniel and his platoon moved through the forest of mud, burning trees, smoldering branches, and freezing temperatures, they never knew from what direction the enemy was going to attack. The forest echoed blast after blast, making it impossible to determine the location of the enemy. All they could do was start shooting, not knowing if they were shooting into the reverberating sound wave or the source. The German artillery, specifically designed to explode as it hit the treetops, which sent flaming treetops and branches crashing down onto the soldiers below. With each step they took, they never knew if they would blow up from a landmine. They were completely surrounded. The enemy was in front, behind, beside, above, and beneath, day and night. One wrong move in any direction meant death, and a violent one at that. This picture, very profound, very moving. There's a line in the part of the book that was very clear to me. The next paragraph down, Daniel knew that there would be no chance of survival if he were to succumb to fear. And that is lined all the way through this great book. You're standing in the middle of this forest. You're trying to move your way through. Mimi's home, wondering, loving, sending you letters that would not reach you, all these kind of things. And you're over there walking through this forest, trying to help me, a person who's not even been born yet, be safe and free. I understand that many men went into that battle and did not come out because of the design of the forest. Is that correct?
Thousands.
Thousands and thousands and thousands. The purpose was to take the forest and then to take a city.
Right.
And the city name was?
Aachen.
Aachen. Okay. And yet thousands of men, many of them 19, 20, 21, 22?
18, 19.
18. 19. You were actually an older gentleman in the troop in a lot of ways. And as you walked through the forest and you made it to the clearing, there was a clearing on the other side of this forest. My sense is there must have been such a slight moment of gratitude to have gotten through the forest. What were you facing after the forest?
Well, it wasn't actually after the forest. It was a clearing in the forest.
It was a clearing in the forest.
Right.
Okay.
That we thought was, we could see them dug in, but they weren't.
They were not dug in.
That was a camouflage. So we called for the mortar fire to try and get them out of there.
Right.
And some of the mortars fell in our section.
My understanding is that the coordinates that were called in actually were your coordinates. So we unfortunately had our own bombs falling on us.
Right. But they weren't dug in, so they were on each side of us. So the firing started.
Okay.
And that's when I got hit in the arm and shrapnel in the back and so on.
So you had a bullet lodged in the arm,
In my arm, right?
shrapnel in the back, in your back, and then witnessed some pretty painful and horrific experiences,
Oh, yeah.
and then passed out.
Right.
Can you tell us about waking up and what you woke up to?
Well, I think by the grace of God, I was had a good guard. I mean, not a guard, a German soldier who, well, first of all, the medic that was tending my wound, he got the shrapnel, and he went out, period. So then I passed out. And I woke up with someone kicking my leg and trying to get me up and give me the German command to hurry up, march schnell. And I didn't know what he meant or what. So I was moaning along, and I don't know how I got up. He helped me up or something, but I got up and he told me to march on, march schnell. And that's how I started, and walked and walked and walked. Being interrogated in different farmhouses. So we kept on walking until we hit the prison camp for days.
For days and days, it sounded like. As you were walking, and as I had read your history at this point of your life, it was very clear to me that you were not walking alone.
No.
It was very clear to me that you weren't walking alone. You were walking with God. You were walking with the love of family. You were walking with the wonderful memories.
Right.
Can you share with us some of that thought process, what that was like? Because that is what is clear, the strength that walked you through.
Well, yeah, that's what kept me going, really. Thinking of the family, thinking of her and the baby, and I had to get back to them.
Have to get back to them. You were in two camps, Stalag 6G.
Gee.
Okay, and then you were moved again from Stalag 6G, or that's the
to an
second-
office stall.
to another to office stall.
And that's when we had to march down the Autobahn. Weak as we were, we still had to march.
The first stop, was that where you had medical services or makeshift medical services?
Right. Supposed to be.
Supposed to be.
Right.
And can you tell us a little bit about the people who came to you to help you tend to your wounds?
Yeah, there was a guy by the name of Moose. He was supposed to be the head of the barracks there. A good, healthy Brooklynite. And he and a French padre and a Russian pre-med student examined my arm, but my arm in the meantime was all swollen up, and I think gangrene must have been trying to set in or going to set in. And they looked it over and they said, Farchione, that's showers for you in the morning. I said, I'm going to take a shower? No, he says, your arm's coming off. And that's when I prayed, all night long. And when they came back in the morning to get me, the arm was down. The swelling had gone down. And they couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe it. So the arm didn't come off. But the bullet was still lodged in there. And they had to come out. But they had no, you know, you don't go into an operating room. You go in another room and lay down and no anesthesia or anything, and they took the bullet out. And that bullet, another miracle, that bullet was supposed to be an explosive type bullet. That once it hits into the arm or any part of your body, it explodes.
Okay.
And my arm's supposed to have been shattered,
So
but it didn't explode.
it did not explode.
No.
The gangrene
Settled down.
settled down.
We don't know if it was gangrene or what. They didn't have any, no X-rays or anything.
Right.
They didn't have any idea. They said it might go into the gangrene
Right,
and the swelling, all that. And they decided to take it off.
right.
And that's when we were doing all the amputations in the shower rooms.
So the shower room was
That's why we
full of
could
the
never take a
amputees.
shower.
Right.
But there wasn't any water. So there was no shower, actually. It was in the room. Is what they used. So,
So in the morning, everyone was slightly surprised is probably a huge understatement. There had been a miracle.
right.
There had been a miracle. And you had,
It's a second miracle.
that was the second miracle. What did you see the first miracle?
The one, they didn't get rid of me.
So your first miracle is that you got through the forest and that you were alive.
You're right. That the German soldier didn't finish the job. So,
So here was a second miracle.
was
Because
the
many
arm.
of them, I do understand, as you and I chatted, that they would choose to shoot servicemen as opposed to take them prisoner.
Pardon?
Many of the folks with the Germans had shot as opposed to taking them prisoner then.
Right.
They just simply shot them. And so you were walking and you were there and you had met some folks who walked before you to try and help you medically. When did you then move to the next camp? When do you remember?
From the first one?
Correct.
From Stalag 6G?
Okay, you were in Stalag 6G, and then you moved to the
Yeah.
to second camp. Okay, okay.
Then we had to march down the Autobahn to
Right.
get to. No transportation whatsoever. We had to march. And that's when this buddy of mine and I tried to escape.
Yes,
And we didn't get very far.
not too far.
No. But till they shot over our heads, they wouldn't any order us back. And so we got back in the column and
Third miracle.
another miracle, yeah.
Third miracle.
Yeah. So, but my buddy had a bum leg at the same time. He was shot in the leg. And he was, I call him Hopalong Cassidy, and we give each other different names.
You did. To keep
And
your
I was a little bit ahead of him when we were trying to take off, escape. And he was behind me. And I'd say, come on, hop a little faster. But we didn't get very far.
didn't get too far.
No.
Yep, and back in
Actually, we
line.
didn't know where we were going to go.
I'm sure. I'm certain there were probably a lot of thoughts in your mind.
Oh, yeah. We
A
didn't
lot
know
of
where we were
worries.
gonna go.
And
But there
yet-
were a lot of German sympathizers, and we knew of that, like the German guard that we had in our first camp, Stalag 6G, down-to-earth guard. He would, he's the one that took my card that I made and mailed it for me.
He did.
That's how she got the card.
And when you got that card on that day, what was that like for you?
Well, it was relief because I knew he was still alive.
You were very relieved.
Yeah, right.
So hope was there.
Yeah,
Again, all those prayers and all that love.
yeah.
This really is very interesting because the book that your daughter has put together about this story really truly is not only a story of being a prisoner of war and going through a battle that has not been talked about much, it's also very, very much a love story. It really is a story of kindness, compassion, faith, knowing, belief, and trust. And all the way through, I can hear your strong spirit, your strong belief that you never walked alone. You walked with all of these people who were thousands of miles away from you, and with this beautiful spirit, your God.
And the wonderful meals she used to prepare for us. Imaginary food.
Can you talk a little bit about that? You were sharing a little bit of that as you and I sat together the other day. The imaginary food. What did you actually eat when you were a prisoner of war?
What did we have in the camp?
What did you have in the camp, and then what did you image?
Well, we just had sour cabbage. That's about it. That's all we ever had is sour cabbage.
How about the bread with sawdust?
Pardon?
Bread with the sawdust.
Oh, yeah, and then the bread that would come with it would be bread made with sawdust instead of flour. But we'd eat it anyway. It was all right. But then, you know, these young kids coming in. This was, see, we were before the Battle of the Bulge. You've heard of the Battle of the Bulge?
Yes, I have.
All right, and a lot of these young kids were caught in that Battle of the Bulge. They would come in there, and we'd call them spoiled brats because they wouldn't eat. They'd look at the food, and they wouldn't even touch it, or even, no taste or anything. So we kept telling them, you better eat, because all you're going to get is this. Is that, or you're going to go. They went. We lost them because they were stubborn enough not to eat that food. They didn't like it. They didn't want to eat it.
So a number of men were dying from starvation.
From starvation in there, right? Not too many. I mean, just a few of them. And at that camp, I don't have any more later on, but with us, it's a few of them just passed away because they were stubborn enough not to eat.
And yet you also did something rather unique. And we talked about the imaginary food.
Oh, yeah. I'd set up the table complete. I mean, from the bunk. From the bunk, we were chatting away and setting up the table and who was going to carve the turkey and so on and so forth, and the pies, and they kept us going. The imaginary food, her famous pies, and so they enjoyed it. They enjoyed the meal.
It sounds so creative and amazing. Isn't it just absolutely amazing? Did you ever realize that those magnificent meals that you had cooked again and again and again would help sustain him at such a time?
And when he came home, we always wanted a cup of coffee and apple pie.
He did. Did you have a lot of imaginary coffee?
Yeah. Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. And the delicious pie. I'd say to the boys, you better have some of this pie or it's going to go. And they would go along with me. And they survived.
So I find that very powerful that the ones who went along with you also made it through. As you were present in the bunk, we have a picture of the bunk and what some of the bunks looked like in the different...
Just ordinary wooden bunks is all they were. No mattress. And if there was a mattress, it was filled with saw chips. And,
saw chips.
Yeah.
And no
wood
blankets?
Wood chips, wood chips.
So, blanket or no?
Pardon?
No blanket, or did you have blankets? Or
yeah, they gave blankets, but only a few blankets, not too many. We had to share blankets. So, and no showers, no shaving equipment, no nothing. Because whatever we had, they took away from us when they captured us.
They did. When you two think about being so far from each other and finally reuniting, they came to the bunk one day and there were American soldiers. You could hear I heard you could hear the tanks moving forward in the book. Do you remember that day that you were free?
The liberators? When we were liberated?
When you were liberated.
Sure do. Yeah, that was a great day.
Can you walk us through a little bit about that? What were you doing that day?
Well, we were in our bunks. Probably couldn't go very well, too weak. But we had to get out. And so they told us, come on out, get out, in their German language.
Right.
And we went out, and there were trenches around there. So his buddy and I, we jumped into the trench, and we could hear the tanks coming from a distance. Well, he had the rosary, and we were both hanging onto the rosary beads. And tanks came in, down goes the towers and the fences and all that, and Germans captured, and they were taken care of, and then the ambulance came in, and we were carried out on the stretchers. And as I got near the ambulance, as they were carrying me and I got near the ambulance, I heard the radio man come over to the major and said, "Sir, President Roosevelt just passed away." And he said, "Hey, who the hell cares? Get these guys out of here and get them in here." And that was a joyful day. April 12th. Yeah. So from there we went to the field hospitals.
Right.
And they weighed each one of us. And I went down to 127 pounds.
And you're how tall?
Pardon?
How tall are you?
6 foot.
6 foot.
127. I went in 195, almost 200. And I think that some of that fat sustained me.
Kind of helped you through some of those harder moments.
Right. So
He's gained it back.
He's gained it back. Mimi says you've gained it back.
Yeah.
I think that's a great thing. Actually, they did keep you in for quite a while, did they not? You needed to, you were in England, weren't you?
Well, this buddy of mine flew back to the States.
Right.
And then, but I had to go to Marlborough, England.
Right.
To the 52nd General there, and from there, they wouldn't let us fly home. The ones that were more had to be rehabbed a little better. So we came back on the Chateau Thierry hospital ship and took the long route, 14 days, till and we had one-on-one nurses taking care of us. So had a good time on the ship.
It's a nice going home, isn't it?
It was nice going home. No cold. All we had to eat was baby's food. When we first liberated, they gave us chopped baby food, and that was too coarse for us. So now they upgraded us to strained baby food. And we ate that. So that's on a hospital ship. I mean, no steak or anything like that. We just baby food all the way through, all different types.
Right, because actually your system couldn't tolerate.
That's all we could tolerate.
That's all you could tolerate. And if when folks choose to grab the book, they're going to find out your own cooking expedition when you were in prison in the cooking of dandelions.
Oh, she's got that in there.
She's got that in there. Yes.
Well, I thought it was dandelion, but they weren't dandelion.
So
I couldn't go out in the fields or anything.
Right.
But they had a work crew. They had work crews.
Right.
The ones that were able to work, prisoners that were able to work, they brought them on the work crews. And we didn't have any oil or anything like that. So the guys, if you find anything similar to oil, so they brought some fat or lard fat or something. I tried to melt or fry on a stove. We had a potbelly stove in there. And didn't work. They all got sick. All got worse.
Yeah, for just a bit though, and then I understand, this was not your cooking so much as it really was your system too.
Right.
You just could not adapt to it. You could not tolerate that.
Right.
So you proceeded back to Utica? Was that where you ended up going to? You ended up going into Utica, which is where...
Rhodes General, yeah.
And that is where Mimi reconnected with you.
Right.
And you got to see his beautiful face.
Yes.
Tell me about the day you saw his beautiful face.
Well, I saw him running down from the hospital to the car, and I couldn't believe the size of him.
Right.
He was so thin. And so then we went downtown, and we stayed there that evening. Then we came back the next day, and it was Father's Day.
Wow.
And then there's a little story from there about his mother. You can tell him about that.
It's in the book.
It's in the book. What I'd like to do is just remind our audience that war doesn't stop the day you hit the soil. There has been, I'm sure, many thoughts, many memories. And for you to have to wait so many years to share your story tells me an awful lot. It moves me to know that you have carried this story and this journey, both of you, as well as your experiences. You've just really touched lightly on the different things that have happened, and I thank you. I thank you very much. I want to thank you for being here today and having not only the courage to serve for me and all of us and your family and friends, for folks you never even knew, you never knew were going to be before you, in a way that was so courageous, so loving, so spirit-centered, where you could find the miracles in the journey, is amazing. And again, the name of the book is Within a Purple Heart, Through the Battle of Herkston Forest and Prison Camps of Our Second World War. It is authored by your daughter, your fifth daughter.
Yes.
There were more children to come after Mary Jean.
Right.
And it was written by Sharon Farchione Ross. I want to thank our guests, Daniel Farchione and Mimi Farchione.
You're welcome.
And thank you so much from the bottom of my heart.
Nice being here. Thank
Nice
you.
meeting you.
Nice to meet you
Nice
too.
being here.
This program was produced through Penfield Community Television in Penfield, New York.